Kev here again, and welcome back to another Woodland Camp and Craft Thursday night group chat. Sorry we're running late. The event for Google Hangouts on air, they're having trouble with it. I know on the MTFU chat on Tuesday we had trouble where there was just no option to start the broadcast, and the same's been happened to me tonight. I've had to create a brand new event. So here we are. I'm joined by Simon Hardie from Ashdown Forest Crafts. Good evening, Simon.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Good, thank you very much. Also joined from my good friend Kurt from Red Owl Bushcraft.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're all well.
All right.
So yeah, I'm just going to just pop over to Facebook to make sure everyone can get this new link. So I've had to change that, and then we'll get straight into the topic.
Okay, mate.
Get this new link, so I've had to change that. No, I'll just mute mine. Right, I think we're getting there. I think the founder's on YouTube anyway.
Oh, does this come out on YouTube as well, does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going through Google as we're chatting, like a Skype call, and then there'll be a section on YouTube where people can come join in the side chat. Right. Okay. Right, now I've got my head around this. We've got people watching yet, so I know we're going good. Right. Okay. Yeah. So Simon is a knife maker. I'm sure if anyone read in the description or the links on the Facebook side of things, he's also a leather worker, and you do a few bushcraft courses as well. Is that right, Simon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only in the summer. I'm a fair weather bushcraft instructor.
Yeah, well, I can't fault you for that. I think, was it Kurt, did you pick up last week about my little series I do on YouTube with Lily through the like episode I do, like bushcraft for children?
Oh, yeah.
I'm the same. I'll only teach her through the summer because I don't like the idea of bending down when she's got all the layers on and clothes on and hand and knives when she's not as comfortable as she could be.
Yeah.
So someone was saying, no, Kev, I really like that. I think it was Stuart Chopper-Wed said, I really like what you do with Lily and that, and he said you should take it back up, and that's what I'm going to do. When it's a bit nicer weather, you know, late spring till the end of summer, that's when I'll continue that series. So, on to the questions. I'm sure they're going to come in thick and fast now. We've got Kieran, young lad from Kieran's online bushcraft school. He wants to get into some leather work, and he wants to know what's the basic tools that he's going to need to get into some leather work.
Well, not a lot really. I mean, a lot of the stuff you're going to have laying around the house. It depends what you want to make as your first project as well. I'd suggest probably making a belt as your first project to cut your teeth because it's quite easy. For that, all you're really going to need is a Stanley knife to cut the leather, which you've probably already got kicking around the house anyway. Most people have got a Stanley knife. You're going to want something to cut a groove into the leather, which is where your stitch will go. I'll get a scrap here and I can show you. scrap of leather there, so I have to remember where the camera is, and then there's one of these, which is what's called a stitch groover. And I don't know if I can get that to focus on what I'm doing here. Just about, yeah. And you'll take your stitch groover and you run it down the side of your leather, and it creates a groove. Is the camera picking that up okay? That groove on there? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's your groove. That's where your stitch is going to go. Then you've got a few choices. I mean, all of these tools are between £5 and £10 each. So they're not a great deal, but you don't need all of them to start. This one is like a spur with a wheel on the end. That's what's called a stitch marker. And you roll that down your groove, and that then gives you nice, even little indentations as to where each stitch is going to go. But if you haven't got one of those, you can use a fork out of your kitchen drawer. Just damp the leather first. Wet leather marks will mark if you look at it funny, so it's very, very easy. So you just get your fork and you tap along with all of your holes. Then you've got the option then of you can either use the traditional method of an awl or a pricking iron to go through the leather for stitching, or you can use a Dremel. I mean, I do so much of it. I use a 1 mil drill bit in a Dremel these days because I'm, you know, churning stuff out on a daily basis now. But that's really all you need to start. Something to mark your stitches, something to sew with, needle and thread, and something to cut that groove. I mean, you don't even really need to put the groove in if it's not going to be something that's going to rub against anything else. You don't need the groove. If you put the leather, if you just stitch the leather through, you'll have your stitching on the surface. So for something like a sheath, that's going to rub on your trousers, and the thread is going to wear away in no time at all. If you recess the thread in a little groove like that, it'll last forever. The thread will be beneath the surface of the leather, so there's no wear on it. So that's about it, really. I'll just say a Stanley knife, a groover, needle and thread, and then, you know, stuff you'll have at home, ruler, pencil, things like that. I mean, in time as you go on, you'll want tools like this. This is an edge beveler, and that just gives you just that nicer finish on your leather. So you'll run that down the edge like that, and it just takes off that corner piece and gives you a nice rounded sort of edge on there. And yeah, you know, but the basics, you could get started for less than 20 quid, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, how cheap do you go? Because, you know, your stitch marker, I got one cheap off eBay. I think it was about £1.29 or something, coming about 3 weeks from China. Yeah. But as I run it down my leather, it wobbles, so my stitching's a wobbly. I mean, how cheap? That's the...
Well, yeah, there. I mean, even with cheap, there's too cheap, isn't there? Yeah. I mean, if I remember rightly, I think that cost me about 6 quid, nearly 10 years ago. So it's probably in the region of a tenner now, I'd have thought. Yeah. But, you know, I've had that 10 years. I wouldn't have thought I'll ever need to buy a new one. That's quite cheap to me, that seems, you know, something like that.
It's good economy. But then, I mean, after that edge beveler, what would you do then? Would you burnish it? But you can do that with light or anything, can't you?
You can burnish with anything. I mean, there's this great school of thought you've got to have a special wooden slicker, or people make a wooden tool to put in a hand drill to do it. When I started, I used the back of a metal teaspoon. I'd just spit on my thumb, wipe the spit down the leather, and then just furiously rub up and down with the spoon. Now, obviously, keeping a store of antler in, I've just got a tine off of an antler. That's all I use. When I moulded the leather when it's wet, I will give it a rub with that before it dries, and it gets to a sort of a semi-sheen on it. And then once it's dry, I'll do it again. There's a chemical called gum tragacanth, which you can rub on it, and then burnish it with that. I mean, this pot of gum trag cost me about 3 quid, and it's 9 years old, and I'm not even 3/4 of the way. I'm not even a quarter of the way into it yet. It's 3/4 full, so even that's cheap. But you don't really even need that, you know. I bought the professional stuff since I've gone full time, just to be proper and do it the official route. But you need very, very little to actually make a product and get started, you know.
And I would imagine that's to make sheaths. If he's going to be making things like pouches and stuff like that, he's going to need even less stuff, isn't it?
Nothing, you know, it's a needle and thread with a pouch. You can't cut a groove in the leather, it's too fine. You can punch through it with an awl just using your hand. So yeah, an awl and a needle and thread, and scissors or a Stanley knife. That's all you need for pouches. A hole punch is helpful, but you can get around that with a cordless drill if need be.
Yeah. So if you did find a bit of nice leather, have you got any sort of recommendations for any dyes or anything? Is it, because I imagine most dyes.
Dyes, there's 3 types of dye. You've got an alcohol dye, you've got an oil dye, and you've got an acrylic dye. And I don't find any particular one type of dye is good for all the colours. So what I tend to do is I use the acrylic dyes for light colours like tan, light brown, things like that, pale green, blue, stuff like that. The oil dyes, they come out best in mid colours. So like the one I use most is walnut brown, which gives you a sort of a mid brown that looks a lot like that sort of colour. And then the oil dye, the alcohol dyes are for the really dark stuff. When I do a black or a really dark brown or something like that, they need to layer up and leave no marks, so they're good for that really. But yeah, there's a slightly different discipline with using all of them. Best place to start with dyes is the alcohol dyes. They give the easiest result, the quickest, with least effort and knowledge. So I'd say start with them. Phoebings is the company from America that make most dyes, and the alcohol dyes that I'm talking about come in a little pot like that. That's chocolate, that one. You'll probably get about 10 sheaths out of that little pot, and I think that little pot cost about £4 from Le Prevost. So it's, you know, it's all fairly cheap. Once you get going, obviously, the obscure colours I still buy in small pots, but I tend to buy a quart at a time of the other dyes that I use. But, you know,
Okay.
and
What about
these takeaway trays, the plastic ones, to pour it in.
Oh yeah.
And, yeah, damp the leather, wipe it on with a wet sponge, leave to dry. And that's it.
Okay. So I hope that answers your questions, Kieran. Unfortunately, you never told us more specific what you was going to be doing. That's why I've touched on sheaths and pouches there. If not, buddy, just hit me up in the comments when you come back. 'Cause I know you can't join us live tonight because you're away. But just message me and tell me if you need any more info. I've got another question coming in from Adrian.
Okay.
He's been helping out with posting the links around on Facebook for me because I didn't know he was going to be able to see it. He wants to know, I think it's in 2 parts, he wants to know what's for knife sheaths, what sort of thickness of leather should he be going for?
Really, that depends on the type of sheath. A standard kind of bushcraft sheath, just your sort of neck friction fit kind of sheath, of that sort of variety, where there's the shape and fit of the sheath is what retains the knife. So there's no fasteners or anything like that. All of mine are wet moulded for an exact fit. I won't use less than 3mm. I prefer 3.5. But you want veg tanned top grain leather. Top grain is the very, very top of the hide. When it's raw, I've got a little piece over here. When it's raw, it looks like that. It's got a fair sheen on top. The sheen on the top is what's called the fat layer. That's what gives the leather its integrity. Now, when you buy a split grain, the fat grain remains on the top, and you're essentially buying the lower layers of the fibre of the leather, and that will have no integrity whatsoever when it's wet moulded. It's what cheap belts are made of. You put them on, buckle them up, and 3 days later it's stretched. That's what that does. So you need proper top grain veg tanned leather, 3 to 4mm really, if you're going to wet mould or do anything that's to keep a shape.
Okay, and where'd you get yours from? What's the sort of places you can get the nice leather from?
I get mine all over. At the moment I'm using some Valencian leather from Le Prevost up in Newcastle, who are about the most cost effective on a lot of stuff. Their website's very, very old fashioned, and you have to work it all out and the VAT and add it all up yourself, and it's a bit of a mare. But once they know you, the service is very, very good, and the prices are quite good. If not, I'll use Guest Leather. Sorry, Ginger Guest is a mate of mine. He's a good guy. He can sort out good hides in there. or there's the Identity store down in Matlock in Derbyshire, who also stock good stuff, but they're probably the dearest of the bunch.
Okay. So yeah, I was gonna say Identity store because I've seen them at the Bushcraft show, and I know.
Yeah, they're a lovely bunch. The girls who work in the office there are really nice, but they are quite pricey. So, you know, swings and roundabouts really. Depends on how much you want to spend and what you want. But then not every leather place stocks everything you need, so you kind of do have to use all of them at some point as you increase in your repertoire of stuff you're doing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no problem. I hope that answered your question, Adrian. I just want to see if anyone's got any questions.
Yeah, there is a couple in the side chat. LG for Outdoors asks, what is there any uses for oxblood? What would the use for oxblood be, should I say?
What, as a dye?
I reckon so. I think that's what you mean. Matt, is it? Is that what you mean by that? I'll just wait for him to get back to us, but it just says in the side chat, what would you use for oxblood?
For oxblood, Phoebings actually do make a dye called oxblood. I've got a tub of it over there. Again, you know, that I'd use it for whatever anyone orders it for, to be honest with you. I think I've done some belts in it is all. It's not really a sheath colour, I wouldn't have thought. If someone orders it, don't get me wrong, I'll make it, you know, no problem. But I've done belts in oxblood, but you know, I'm assuming he means the dye. If he means actual blood from an ox, it could possibly have some use in leathercraft in days gone by. You know, you tan things with brains and stuff, so I don't see why it wouldn't have a use. But if blood from the actual ox itself has got a use, I'm afraid I don't know what it is.
Yeah. And he also asks, what's the best, acrylic, alcohol, or oil-based?
They're all different. I prefer oil-based because I like the finish it gives. And once the oil-based dye has dried, it's never going to come off and it's never going to run. The acrylic dyes I still use, and if it's something I'm wet moulding, it's awkward because a lot of the dye will come off when you run it under the tap to soak the leather or submerge it in a bowl of water or whatever. So a lot of the acrylic dye can come off like that, which isn't so much of a problem. You can re-dye it, but if you've already stitched it and you're using a lighter colour thread than the dye itself, which is what I do, you can then get the dye bleeding into the thread and making it a bit messy. So you want to be dyeing that before you've sewn it up to get it to work. The alcohol dyes I find are the worst of the lot because they come up blotchy on the first coat. So you then have to give a second coat, which 9 times out of 10 I found then leaves you with a darker colour than you actually wanted in the first place. Whereas the oil dyes and the acrylic dyes are the colour they're meant to be right from one coat, if you see what I mean. So for colour consistency, I'd prefer oil or acrylic, but they've all got their place. You know, you have to use them all if you're going to be diverse in what you make and do, really. Then you've got stains on top of that, but that's another ball game. We won't even go there.
Oh, what's happened?
Is everyone all right? We've lost Simon, haven't we?
I think so.
Yeah, we've just lost Simon. I've no idea what's going on with Google and YouTube. Yeah, he's back, look.
Yeah, it keeps logging me out for some reason. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's you. I'm not sure if it's this problem we've had with Google and YouTube. And I mean, I know we was having trouble in the MTFU chats as well, so I'm not sure if it's YouTube. I don't think it's us. I've done nothing different to what I normally do anyway. But they're saying it's coming through all right now. I think back to the question with the oxblood. I think Matt wanted to know what is best to use for oxblood, whether that was the acrylic or oil.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think that was.
It's an alcohol one that I use for oxblood. I've got it. I'll check. Hang on. Yeah, there's mine. It's just an alcohol. Phoebings oxblood. It's just an alcohol dye. Wet the leather. Wet a sponge. I pour the dye out in those plastic takeaway trays. Give them a good wash first, get the grease out. They're good for dye because the dye doesn't stick to those, so you don't get congealed dye in them. And yeah, just keep layering it up till you achieve the colour you want. Oxblood comes out really pink, first of all, as does burgundy. And so it might take you 2 or 3 layers to get to that sort of traditional old Dr. Martin boot oxblood colour, if you like. But yeah, 2 or 3 layers, you'll be there. But I use the alcohol one.
Great. So Adrian was hit back with another question. He wanted to know, how do you wet form? I don't think he's seen how it's done, the actual moulding process. Do you mould over an actual wooden mould, or?
It depends what you're making. If I'm making a pouch, like a possibles pouch or something like that, I will cut a block of wood out to the shape I want, and then you wet your leather. I don't know if I've got a former here. Hang on, let's have a little look. Yeah, here's. Sorry, there's a Land Rover jack handle falling over behind me. I don't know why that's in here. Yeah, this is a former. This is just a block of old wood. That's the shape of the biggest possibles pouch I do. And what I would do for that, I would cut out a piece of leather, probably about twice the size of that, if not 2.5 times the size of that. You soak the leather, and then you soak it for ages and ages and ages in a bucket of water until you stop seeing little bubbles appear. Once the little bubbles have stopped appearing, your leather is now saturated, and it's very supple and easy to mould. So what I would do, I've got my wooden block. I've got cutting mats all over this table. You can't see them, but something to keep the water off the table. And then basically just start to push the leather over that wooden block, folding the edges round with your fingers. You need very short fingernails for this, because if you've got any length to your fingernail, you're just going to mark the leather straight away. Wet leather will mark if you look at it funny. It's very, very susceptible. So yeah, push it all round your block. You obviously want your top edge there, you're just going to have the leather up to that edge, and then on the sides and on the bottom, you're going to mould your leather around it all. Once you've got your leather sort of squashed in around that, then what I do, I force the leather on the block through this shape, this sort of U-shaped piece of wood. I'll force that over the top, then I just clamp it down all the way around the edges, and I'll leave it like that for probably about 3 or 4 days while it dries. Then you should, in the centre, end up with a shape that's exactly like that, and you trim the excess off the edges, stitch your back on, and that's the beginning of your pouch. But that's how I'd wet mould a pouch. Wet moulding a sheath is a completely different ball game. What you do for that, what I do for that, I'll make a template up for every sheath I do for each different knife. I've got a box of templates here. That's all the different knives and sheaths and axes and stuff I do all in there. And let's take, for instance, this one I've just done for a customer. This is my template for a Laplander sheath, Laplander saw. Everyone's familiar with that. All I've done is, on a piece of graph paper, draw around the saw. That then gives me the shape I want to fit in the sheath. I then sketch the sheath around it. Once I've sketched it and I'm happy with it, I'll then make the lines a bit firmer and straighter with a ruler. I allow about 15 mil around the object the sheath is going to go, for the excess leather to allow the width of the thing, because obviously we're working in 1D there. It's going to be a 3D object at the end, so you have to allow, it's never going to be like that. You have to allow for a bit of room inside so the thing fits. So then I'll cut my leather. Well, sorry, back to where I was. Once I've drawn it on the graph paper, what I do then is I then spray mount the graph paper to a piece of card. This is a good old Stella box. I find beer cartons conveniently good cardboard for this kind of thing, and we generate a few in this house. So yeah, I'll glue it onto that. That's then my template, and that's it. And you be careful what way you put it on the leather. One way is going to be right-handed, the other way is going to be left-handed. Very easy mistake to make. 9 years down, I still do it once a week. I'll get one wrong. So yeah, that's that. Cut your leather out, dye it, glue it together, stitch it up, and I'll just get that sheath because it's drying over the radiator at the moment. Here is that sheath. What I do then, once it's all stitched and dyed, I will soak that in water until the leather's really squishy. Then I take the Laplander saw, wrap it in cling film, so I don't want it to go rusty. If it's a knife blade, I'll oil the blade and then wrap it in cling film too. While the sheath is soaking wet, you force the thing you want to mould into it, and you can use what's called a bone folder, which is a smooth piece of bone. I find the padded section on my thumb is more than enough, and all I do then is just squash round the object with my thumb until it starts to take on the shape of the item that's going to fit it. So it's now looking like your 3D item, as it were. And then that will, in the summer, I'll hang that on the washing line outside. It will be dry within 24 hours. This time of year, it takes about 2 days to dry indoors. But that's top grain leather, and once it's dry, don't know if you can hear that, that takes on a nice wooden knocking sound. So it's got lots of integrity, it's well formed, and when you push the thing in, you should get a firm clunk that it's in there and it's not going to come out. And that is basically all you do. The only thing to be wary of when you're wet moulding is, I don't know if you can see down the top there, just where the welt comes up here. You want the smallest possible gap between the welt and the object that is going to live in the sheath. The bigger the gap, over time, that leather will slacken off and you'll end up with a big gaping opening to the sheath where your item can fall out. So it's got to be quite fitted. So for wet moulding, I would say I make the sheath just a few millimetres too tight for the thing, because wet leather stretches very well. You'll stretch it out to form the shape you want. It doesn't contract once it's been stretched, and that will then also stop it stretching further, so it keeps its shape. But it's a practiced thing, wet moulding. It's not something that's it's easy to get a wet moulded result, but it's not that easy to get it so that it's exactly right, if you know what I mean. It's a persevere job. If you get it wrong the first couple of goes, keep going with it, because it does take a little while to get right. Always let the sheath dry naturally, don't force it. You can oven dry them at a really low temperature, but it does dry the leather out a bit, and you might have to oil it, give it a bit of extra love, a bit more treatment. But yeah, generally it's a patience job. Wet it, mould it, hang it up to dry for a couple of days.
Great stuff.
And that's it, really.
Yeah, I need to get some decent leather, I think. Craig made a good point that Identity Store do a massive sale at the Bushcraft show. If anyone's down there in May, rather than take it all back, I think they sell it off relatively cheap. If anyone wants to get any cheap leather that way.
They have a few sales throughout the year as well in, I think, the assembly rooms at Matlock as well. Every 3 or 4 months they have a sell-off, and there's quite often some bargains there too. So yeah, worth a look, that is.
Yeah, and me and my mum yesterday, we went into the fabric store, the local big high street shop, and they said that they don't get leather in very often, but when they do, they're going to hang on to it for us. So anyone else can do the same. If there's any furniture makers or anything near anybody, if anyone, you know, you can only get told no, you know, just for a bit of scraps, and I mean, it's perfect to practice on anyway.
Excuse me just a sec. I'm just going to grab the power cable. My battery's going.
Spent a fortune at the Bushcraft show. I think we all did, but mine wasn't on leather.
I know I'm going to have to start saving for the Bushcraft show. I can't wait.
I think I spent nearly £1,000 in 4 days, 5 days, whatever I was there last time.
Did you?
Yeah, but I knew that I was going to. I wanted loads of clothes off from Craghoppers. I wanted to just a full new outfit.
Yeah.
Plus, I wanted loads of stuff from DD. I wanted brand new sleeping systems for me and Elise. That was the under blankets, the over quilts, and so I knew fair well I was going to spend it. It wasn't just like impulse buying. I had saved to go there.
Didn't go around and spot the magpie spot a grand's worth of gear to come home with.
Yeah, but this was the thing. I mean, there was that many people and stuff was going missing. I know Ben Alford had
He did. It was a wood carving, wasn't it, of a knife in a little round of wood. Shameful, that. Shameful. It just makes everybody be on their guard, and it's just awful behaviour, that.
But to be fair, I don't think. Well, I'd like to think it wasn't someone in the bushcraft community. I mean, there was loads of people that were just camping there at the same time, because when we went into the first side, as soon as we pitched in, someone told me I had to move. Some drunken idiots who'd been there all day. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we want our car to go there. So I thought, well, I'm not arguing with you. I'm not going to spoil the weekend by pitching up there. And then the marshals told me they can get stuffed. Whoever's there is there till Monday. If you went in on the Thursday or the Friday, you was there till Monday. There was no cars coming in or out.
Right.
So yeah. So then Lily was walking around. We went over. We set up, pitched up. We went over to Richard and Davey and everyone at the Craig and everyone at the Craghoppers tent.
Yeah.
Walked back, and Lily walked on the inside of someone's guy ropes on the tent. Some bloke, he was drunk, and told her off, swore at her.
Really?
And I'm like, hang about. Hang about. You know, I don't want it to come to fisticuffs here, mate, but you don't talk to my little girl like that. You don't swear at her, do you know what I mean?
No, that's not on.
I went to tell Richard. I said, oh, I'm not very happy down there. And he said, well, come and pitch up at the side of the Craghoppers tent. So I went down there, Martin Rowling and Olivia Beardsmore just said, just basically, it was like Noah. She just went, everyone moved, so everyone had to move out of the way. So I pulled my car in and out. There was all these tents collapsing and everything. And she says, oh, if you go back up, you can go around there. So I was like, yeah, it's not who you know. I mean, it's not what you do, you know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. So basically, we just pitched up there. But there was a lot of drunken idiots. And I mean, some of them haven't got a clue. You could just tell there wasn't, you know, there was in trackies, and I just felt that they want the part of the bushcraft side of things, if you know what I mean, and that's the way I like to view it. I like to view it that it wasn't someone in the bushcraft community that stole from them.
I must admit, I didn't see any of that. I had nothing but a good time there. I spent considerably less than you. I think I spent 20 quid on 2 breakfasts over the weekend. That was about my lot. But no.
For a pint though, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, I took my own beer. I'm too much of a skinflint to buy pints.
Like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Meeting everybody, you know, putting all them faces, because you can there's only so much you can do on this. Even this side of things, I mean, this is fairly new, but it was just text messages mainly on various bushcraft groups and that.
I mean, that was my reason for going, really, was just to catch up with a load of faces I know off the internet that I've not actually met, you know, and I did meet most of them, so it was a very good. I talked myself hoarse, I think, the weekend, but yeah, it was a good one, really, for that. But that was all I went for. A few of the talks, like, you know, Perry's talk and Johan Schoolman's talk and that sort of thing I wanted to see, but otherwise, no, it was just a big soch for me. I enjoyed it. I did.
Well, I missed nearly all the talks.
Did you?
Yeah, well, I didn't even see the like the Les Iddins or anyone else. I didn't even see them once.
Right. I wanted to see Les, but I was on a budget, and that was extra, that one, so I never got to do that one.
I sort of snuck over to Will and was watching Will Lord a fair bit, and
I missed him as well.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't far from the Craghoppers thing. I don't know how you missed him. And then I went to watch Jason Inglemiles. That was an interesting one. Where Bushcraft's at just lately, and yeah. So I'm hoping to get back, and now I've got my own little group set up, and I'm trying to push that. I mean, I think I have to go to a couple of these big events a year. I think you just have to make a presence if you're trying to be taken serious. I mean, and I am trying to be taken serious with the group and that. In fact, a strange thing today. When I put the group event out for this talk, you know how people put they're interested in, or people who are attending, you can, you know, they give you an interest whether they're going to turn up. There was a lass clicked on it, so I've not recognised her, I've not spoke to her. Anyway, she's from she's from the village, she's from the town.
Oh really?
Yeah, and I was just like, well, it's getting a bit. The circles, I'm getting trapped now. The circles approaching me. And I just get to the feeling when I was working at Go Outdoors the back end of last summer, someone come in and was like, I know you, and I was like, do you? You make YouTube videos, and I was like, yeah. Oh, I love watching your videos, and I was just like, oh my god. it's sort of a weird feeling. You can imagine how if you was, I don't know, bloody Beyonce, you can imagine how they get peed off. Just constant. They can't even have a dump, you know. Can't even go to I can't even do the shopping without just.
Yeah. I'm sure the millions of pounds would sweeten the deal, though, if you were Beyonce.
You know what I mean? I'd have people cloned. So, anyway, back to the chat. I think we've answered the leather questions. I don't think anyone else has got any leather questions. I'll just read a few off the chat. Let me just make sure the side chat. Oh, Craig said it. Yeah, Craig had his knife nicked at the Bushcraft show.
Yes, he did. I remember that.
That was from our sort of admin area as well. I think someone had gone into our sort of kitchen area and took that. David McRae's put it looks good, doesn't it? So I think he's referring to the Bushcraft show. I know they've spent a bit of money there and they've opened it all up. So yeah, so grinds then.
Okay.
I basically I started when I started getting outdoor more and started evolving from more camping into a more bushcraft sort of mindset. I started collecting knives here, there, and everywhere. But basically, all the knives that never had a Scandi grind, I got rid of because I couldn't sharpen them. I gave a few away at competitions and that. So I know you said down the line you're going to do as a knife sharpening demo for us at some point.
Yeah, can do.
What is the Scandi grind like the most all-round bushcraft sort of knife grind? Is it?
It is really. You get people that will, you know, they'll want to use other grinds and stuff like that, which is fine, and they do work. Like for instance, your Falkniven F1. That's the Swedish pilot survival knife. That does quite well in a bushcraft environment, but it's not a Scandi. Lots of non-Scandis will work in a bushcraft environment, and for some things they're a lot better than a Scandi. But a Scandi is very, very easy to maintain. As you said yourself, you flogged all your knives that weren't Scandis because it's so easy to maintain. So it really works in that environment. You don't need to take much stuff to maintain that edge. But the other thing, of course, with a Scandi is if you look at a wood chisel. A wood chisel is basically flat with a bevel on it like that. If you put two of them back to back, you end up with a Scandi grind. That is the grind for processing wood. And to my mind, bushcraft is mostly the thing with the exception of food and cordage, it's all wood-based. You know, you're going to build all your campcraft items, your shelter, carve your eating utensils. I mean, it just goes on. It's all wood. We do it in the woods. I want the knife that's going to handle wood the most efficiently, the quickest, and the safest. And to my mind, that's a Scandi. That's why we all use them. That's why all of us instructors buy Moras to teach people with. Nice and simple, easy to maintain, very cheap if someone does abuse them, of course, you know. But yeah, for me, a Scandi is the bushcraft grind.
Yeah. Yeah, now when I look back and when I look back to like my sharpening efforts, I was getting like the rainbow colours or the rolled edges. So I was like putting my lack of experience. I was putting like secondary bevels here, there, and everywhere. And my knives now, like you say, I've got a stainless steel Mora.
Yeah.
I think it's a Mora Companion or something like that. But that's the one I take to the beach with me when I'm near the ocean. And then I have a Condor. And basically, all I have to do is strop them. I never really sharpen them. I just give them a strop every now and again, and they become razor sharp. So that's what I do. But yeah, all the other knives. Oh God, no chance. I couldn't even. I do a lot of carving spoons and stuff when I'm out, and you couldn't feather a stick with my knives or out. So I had to get rid of them and get something that was just easy for me.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. I mean, yeah, I tend to carry a Scandi. My main knife will be a Scandi, and I'll normally have a folding knife in my pocket that's normally got more of a flat grind on that I'll use for cutting, you know, cable ties or anything a little bit more heavy duty. Stuff like that can chip a Scandi. I'd like to think the Scandis I produce don't chip if you cut cable ties, but of course, you know, you've only got to scrape it on whatever the cable tie is holding together and it can chip quite easily. Whereas, you know, a saber ground penknife, is a little bit more robust. I can show you something like that. If your Swiss Army knife is a saber grind, basically. Let's get one to show. A saber grind is basically, there's a little Swiss Army knife, and as you can see from that, there's no bevel on it until you get right down to the actual cutting edge. A saber grind will have a spine, and then it will start to creep in to the bevel all the way down to the bottom. And you can either have a full flat saber, which would be like your original saber, which is where the word comes from, or like something like that, that's got the little secondary bevel just on the end to strengthen it. And things like that for general utility, they're a lot stronger than a Scandi. So I'll say have one of these in my pocket or on my belt and my normal knife, and that covers most bases for me, really.
Cool. Yeah, forgot what I was going to say then, to be honest. So yeah, Scandi grinds. So is there any, what sort of, if you was preparing game, what sort of grind would be useful then?
Well, a Scandi will do it. A Scandi's fine for prepping game, but the more, say you're grillocking a deer and you're taking all the meat away from the ribs, the more you rub the knife up and down the ribs on a Scandi, the blunter it gets, because it's a very basic edge, if you like, your Scandi, and it's very exposed. It's a big bevel, so it's very, very easy for it to wear on things like boner. It will do it. It will do it effortlessly. But I find, something like a bit more of a kitchen knife kind of grind. I mean, the kind of thing I would use for that would be like this little Enzo. That's an Enzo Elva I made a few years ago. Again,
nice.
That's a saber grind. It just comes straight down to the bevel with a little secondary bevel on it, and that will hold an edge for a lot longer when you're doing those kind of jobs. And yeah, less sharpening really. These are quite easy to maintain, that kind of grind. There's a little bit more technique to that than a Scandi, getting the angle right, but it's perfectly doable. But that's the kind of thing I would use more for food prep, and a Scandi for wood.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed with my Scandi, if I'm preparing vegetables, if I was slicing a carrot or something, with the Scandi grind, it sort of makes everything jump when you're cutting it.
It goes off to one side. You can do it if you tip the knife slightly to its side, so that the angle you're introducing that side of the bevel to the food is completely 90 degrees to it. That'll work, and you'll cut it much straighter. But yeah, it's not a food prep grind, but it'll do it. I mean, in extremis, you can use anything with a cutting edge for anything. A bit of broken glass will do most things. It's largely all in the technique at the end of the day, and that's what you build up as you move through the scene, as it were. As you start with your borer, and as you gain more knowledge and more confidence in what you're doing, you gain a better understanding of the tools that you need to use, and just build on that as your foundation.
Yeah. Yes, like I say, most of the times while I'm out, I'll just drop everything and put it away, oiled and clean.
Yeah.
If you did need to get a big sharpening task on, Matt was asking, what sort of sharpening stones would you use? What sharpening stones would you recommend?
What, for in the field or at home?
I think at home, because
at home, I still favour wet and dry on wooden blocks myself. I've got the full set of Japanese ice bear water stones, and if I need to sharpen my own knives, I will probably use the water stones, because I know how blunt they are. The water stones I've got, I think the coarsest one I've got is about 3,000 grit, which if you've got an incredibly blunt knife, you are going to be there stroking backwards and forwards for hours and hours to try and get that knife sharp from completely blunt on 3,000 grit. So what I tend to do for a really blunt knife, I'll start on about 240 grit on a piece of wet and dry. I've got some wooden boards. They're all outside, actually. I should have bought some in. But I've just got little bits of plywood that are 9 inches by 3 inches, as per the sharpening system in Morz Kochanski's book. and on each one I've just got different grits of wet and dry, from 240 all the way up to about 1500 grit, and I will go through those. And my thinking behind that is I need less strokes to bring the edge back at 240 than I do 3000. So yeah. I just take it up through the grits of the wet and dry, and then I'll go on to a couple of the Waterstones, and I don't strop anymore because I do a lot of knives. What I use now is Jeweler's Rouge on a buffing wheel in the workshop, because it takes seconds to give it 1,000 licks on that. Yeah. And that's what I do. But yeah, previously, before I was making knives, I would just use the wet and dry method, perhaps go onto the Waterstones if it needs it, and then strop it on a leather belt with a bit of anything on there, toothpaste, auto sole, Jeweler's Rouge, anything with a fine particular in that polishes, really. Some stuff's better than others. Tormek Gold's quite good, you know, but a polishing compound's a polishing compound. It's going to be blunt again next week, you know. I mean, I don't know how. It depends how completely anal and obsessed you get with doing it, you know. I mean, there's people I know that collect folding knives, and everyone has to be able to shave the hair on their arm. They don't use them, of course. They go in a cabinet, but yeah, it depends on what you're doing with your knives, how much you use them, all that sort of thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, hair popping sharp is enough. I know people that will get them to do the paper trick and all the rest of it, but if you can pop your hair on your arm, you've got a good. That's
fine.
Head.
Yeah, exactly, you know.
That's as sharp as I take them for Lily, and she has no struggle processing wood or taking the bark off a bit of birch and make a little spoon for herself or whatever.
Exactly.
So
that's all you need.
So, okay, another question come back in with regards to leatherwork and sewing. Do you use saddle stitch, or what sort of stitch do you use on your sheaths? Is it?
I saddle stitch everything. That's the only one I use for what I do, really. There's, you know, the only other stitch I've ever used is where you do like a mountain man style lace up with a flat lace around the edge. But no, I saddle stitch everything. I think it's very strong, it's very good, and it just works. You know, first time I tried it, it worked. Never needed to look at anything else or change it. But no, for that kind of leather construction, you'd saddle stitch traditionally anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much all I use.
Yeah. So yeah, Adrian, that one was for you again, mate. So that's the double stitch or the saddle stitch. Hope that's what you needed to know, buddy. So yeah, if anyone goes out and does decide to, after information, do a bit of leather work or make a sheath or something, just post it to the group, and then we'll have a gander at it. Yeah, can't be any worse than my dump pouch I made last week. I made a little video doing the dump pouch, and I had it in my hand, and I thought, I even said in the video, I said check twice and cut once, and then I ended up stitching the belt loop upside down.
We all do it. Though.
I even did it on the camera. I even said, look, check this, and I still ended up doing it. But, well,
oh, we all do it. If it makes you feel any better, right? If it makes you feel any better, here's my mistakes from today. Right, this is going to be a neck sheath for a Tops T-bow neck knife. Where is it? Hang on a minute. There's one here somewhere. There we go. That's it. It's a little neck sheath. It hangs around your neck like that. Okay, I do a lot of these for the American market in batches of 10. There's where the strap needs to come, so that when the knife's in, that comes round and holds it in place nicely. This one I did one off. Normally I do them in batches. I've done that as a one-off. Look, I put the strap round the wrong side, and of course I've already sewn that on the back and sewn the edges up, so I'd have to unpick all of that. So that's just a reject. That was one from today. Is a head cover for a splitting maul. I don't know if you can see the blotches on there. I dropped super glue on it after I'd finished it all and polished it, and I was literally just wrapping it in bubble wrap to pop it in the jiffy bag to go to the post office, and I spilt super glue on it. So that's two jobs today worth about 75 quid between the pair of them out the window. It happens. You just have to take it on the chin and not get annoyed with yourself, really.
Don't you sell,
yeah.
sell the seconds on the site though? No?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends what's wrong with them, really. If it's just cosmetic damage, I might sell it if it's an expensive thing. I tend to give it away just to mates who come around. I get a lot of customers dropping in throughout the day, bringing things around and collecting stuff. And so, yeah, I'll tend to just give that stuff away, to be honest. I mean, if it's cosmetic damage on a reject, I might think about selling it. But, of course, I've already stamped it then, and I don't want something out there with my name on that might get sold second hand. The story that it was a reject will of course be forgotten by the time the third person gets their hands on it. So they might look at that and think, well, that's Ashdown Forest Craft, that's a bit substandard, that's a bit crap, you know, look at this.
No,
so
yeah.
I'd rather just put the one out there that's right, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that with the super glue, stuff like that wouldn't bother me. One good bird poo on it, and it would be the same.
It wouldn't bother me for my own stuff, but you know, to sell it to someone who's paid me the proper price for one that looks like it's meant to, and he's picked it off the picture on the website, which of course looks immaculate, and I send him one that looks like a beaver gnawed it, or you know, something like that. It's not great, really, you know.
No. Oh yeah. What sort of on your poppers then? What sort of do they go up in gauge for sizes? Because obviously, if you've got a different thickness of leather, the poppers I've just put on that dump pouch only just the male and the female part of the side only just touch each other. I've got a feeling they're not going to last long. So do they go up in gauge for sizes? Do they?
They do. You buy the press studs on post height. I'll show you what I mean. These are just the standard ones I use most of. And these will go through that just about goes through one layer of leather there. But that little post in the middle, by different heights on the post height. And that allows you to put 2 or 3 layers of leather together. But there's a hell of a lot more shit press studs and rivets out there than there are good ones. Yeah. And it's really difficult to maintain a decent. I mean, when I first started, I bought a sack that had something like 3,000 press studs in, and it took me about 8 years to use them all. And they were brilliant, and I did. Can I find them again? No. Could I even remember what they were called? No. So I've literally been through everything, all the Chinese tat on eBay, all the recognised shops over here, before I found these again from Le Prevost. And to be fair, I'd quite like that post height to be a bit bigger, because what I have to do to put that up, just a single 4mm layer of leather, I have to bevel out the centre of the hole and really press the female part down onto that with my fingers before I hit with the setter. Yeah. And it is a pain. I don't know what the answer is, mate, unfortunately, but most of them out there are crap. All you can do is go through all of them until you find ones that are less crap than the others, really. But these aren't bad. These came from Le Prevost. I'd say that's probably a good port of call for rivets and press studs. They're really knowledgeable. You can ring them up or email your questions into them as well and tell them what you want, and they'll steer you in the right direction there generally. But yeah, there's about 3 or 4 different heights on posts for them, and then there's the width of the domed cap as well, and the width of the base plate as well. You can get them all different sizes and finishes as well, brass, nickel.
Cool. Yeah, because like you just said, I had to bevel out a bit as well. I had to get a thing just because I wasn't happy with it.
Yeah, it is difficult. A lot of it is just how can I? It's just sitting there and thinking about that's not quite right. How can I make it work? Do you know what I mean? There's a fair bit of that in designing leather stuff. What have I got to use? How can I design what I need out of what I've got? Mm-hmm. If you know what I mean. That tends to be a little bit how I go about it.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been doing. All the sort of leather work I've been doing. Richard Marples gave me a big sheet of black leather, and obviously it comes from Craghoppers, and I think what's the sister company? Is it Trespass?
Oh, there's a few, aren't there? I think is Trespass. Is Regatta part of them?
Yeah, sorry, it's Regatta. and obviously they've got the shoe factory, so this was all made. All this black leather is for the boots.
Oh, okay.
I've made loads of shoes out of them, but trying to wet form that sort of 2 mil sort of stuff, it doesn't happen.
It's a bit too thin, and shoe leather won't be veg tanned. It's pre-dyed. It will be what's called chrome tanned, which is it's an impregnated dye. So you get no runoff, and that's what they use for furniture, footwear, handbags, things like that. So it's ideal for your drawstring pouches, but it's not got the integrity for something that you want as a protective case, like a sheath, you know, or a belt, something you don't want to stretch too much.
Yeah, bit like I say, it's been brilliant for practice on, but now I'm just starting to feel like I can probably progress onto some veg stand and don't mind paying for it.
Yeah, it's worth it. Give it a go, mate.
I think that was, you know, your axe sheath, Kurt.
Yeah.
I think that's the same stuff I was using.
That I got that off Stuart from the West Yorkshire, mate.
Yeah. I think you're using the same stuff I was.
Yeah, it's really thick. Really thick, heavy duty stuff.
Was it? Just hold it again, buddy. Hold it still to the camera. And just talk.
My camera's crap. But, right.
Yeah.
That's just for the Hulterfords. Just,
Because I made one that's very similar to that for myself.
That looks thick enough. That should work.
Oh yeah, it definitely works. Definitely works. It does the job, and it's solid, like you can't pull it off. So it does the job. My first ever leather work.
Just tidy, mate. That looks quite good.
Oh, cheers, pal.
Considering it was made in the field as well, wasn't it, Kurt?
Yeah, in the woods. Yeah, well, that was quite fun.
Even better.
Yeah.
One of the lads at the West Yorkshire Bushcraft group, he just come and set up a table and did a bit of a little demo and let people have a play, didn't he?
Yeah, just brought some raw. Just all I knew, it was just rawhide. That's all he said it was. And yeah, like I said, just showed us how to do it. And yeah, we had a crack at it, and must say I really enjoyed it. It's quite addictive.
It is therapeutic, but it's the same with a lot of things. Trying to then turn it, like obviously you're doing it as a business now, but when I got into the photography and took that from a hobby to a business, I never picked the camera up once for a hobby in a year. You know, I used to go down the Lake District, Peak District, and you know, doing all landscapes, and I never picked the camera up because I was too involved with bloody weddings and christenings and all the rest of it. The camera never come up once. And
I know exactly what you mean. That's why I'm only a bushcraft instructor in the summer.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot more stuff throughout the year, and I just found I wasn't going to the woods for myself anymore, and I was missing my hobby. And I do enjoy instructing, but it wasn't something I wanted to do all year. It's really barren in the winter, instructor work, and so you do need something else to tide yourself over for the winter. So knives and leather was my hobby, so I sort of started pushing that a bit more as the job to do through the winter, and I think I've got quite a nice balance now, because by the time summer comes, I'm sick of being stuck in the house making stuff, so I bugger off out for 3 months and do the instructing. Yeah. Then once the crap weather starts to come in, I'm back indoors again, you know, and then I've still got my hobby back for myself. So I like winter camping as well, but I just wasn't enjoying winter instructing so much, and all the extra gear you have to take and all that. You know, it started becoming a little bit of a chore. So yeah, I stepped back from that and did this, and like you say, I've got my hobby back now because I quite enjoy it. You know, I wasn't when I was doing it all.
Yeah, Craig, I was just going to. Craig's just popped up in the side chat and put, yeah, welcome to my world. I know in the winter he makes a lot of leather crafts, and I was just going to say, just before he popped up, we had this conversation with Craig where he was saying, you know, even like a financial thing, you can be pretty well off through the summer months, and then you've got nothing in the winter, so you have to make everything last. Have we lost Simon again? Is he gone again?
Looks like it, pal.
We maybe lost him. Maybe back. Yeah. So with me personally, that's something. You know, there's been a few people that, well, maybe you should, you know, get a job outdoors yourself, or maybe try and get an apprenticeship somewhere. But do you take that step and let something that you love just become a chore and a job, and then you don't enjoy it anymore? And I mean, I know from experience with the photography that I'm like, it's a bit risky.
I don't know. For me, I'd kind of like it. Obviously, I just love being in the woodland, and you know what I mean. If I could do that and like get paid from it teaching or what have you, then that's a win-win for me.
Yeah, hang on, Simon's just messaged me. He's been kicked out. Let me send him another one. Telling him he's not allowed to join. Yeah, but you can imagine if you went out in the woods and you got like soaked constantly for about 2 or 3 weeks solid, you know, or
I don't know, because I'm kind of I know that could happen, especially in this country. You know what I mean? Anything is possible. So it's if you prepare for it happening, then I reckon you'll be absolutely sound. Take each day as it comes.
I don't know. I just feel like there could be something that really sparks and really gets you. I don't know. You could be out with a bunch of school kids or problem children, and they're just winding you up, and do you know what I mean? They're not listening to what they're told, and they're running around with knives, and do you know what I mean? It's just like there'll be a point where all of a sudden you think this ain't fun anymore. This is work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all right. I'm just messaging Simon. Are you still in the chat, David McRae and Craig? You tell us what's it like as a living. You know, when your mortgage or your rent or whatever depends on you going out. Is it still fun or not? Or any other one that's in the chat that may be instructors. Let's find out if it's still fun.
Craig says yes.
It's still good. The 2 to 3 good ones do make it worth it. Is that me, Craig? The brown nosing pupil. Yeah, it's tough. But a few good kids make it worthwhile. You just keep the chat going a minute, Kurt, while I message Simon.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, that's it for me. I feel like if you've got a good ethics and enthusiasticness towards teaching, then everyone's going to have a good time. The people that you're teaching are going to have a good time, which then should make you have a good time. If you feel like you're not enjoying your time and doing what you're doing, then it shouldn't be for you, really. And like I say, I don't feel being held into something that I wouldn't like. But like I say, I haven't tried it yet, so I wouldn't know. But like I say, the way that I think at the minute, I reckon I'd thoroughly enjoy working within the bushcraft world kind of thing.
Yeah. Craig's Palmer star pupil, obviously, we know that. Karen's put, she's not an instructor, but she does youth worker and she's been for a fair few years. She couldn't think of any other job. Yeah, I've friended Karen on Facebook now. She's out in the woods taking the kids out there. Looks like she's doing a cracking job. Yeah, I suppose it's because you're still getting out. I suppose with my photography, maybe it was because I wasn't going out. You know, I was stuck on. There was what it was. There was a wedding, and on the day of the wedding, the bride got a big, massive red coleslaw scabby lip.
Oof.
So I've done 2,500 photos of the day, and I've got 2,500 lips pictures. I've got to take out this, you know, make this. She wants this blister, this cold sore to go away, you know. And then they turn around and the lad was a bit spotty and he said, "Can you get rid of my spots?" And then they come back with, "Can you just whiten our teeth in all the pictures as well?" And all of us, you know what I mean? I'm sat there.
I know
those pictures, and
I know exactly what you went through, mate. The missus is a photographer, and her worst bit is editing, and the amount of times you just see like the same picture she's editing on because she can't let it go unless it's perfection, unless it's something she'd want herself. So yeah, I know exactly. I feel your pain on that one, pal. But yeah, Kevin, I've got to fly, mate. I've got an early day morning. I've got to get the kids off and that.
Yeah, Simon can't get back on anyway.
Can he not?
No, he's turned it off and on and all everything. So,
Yeah.
I think we've got it there. It's been an hour anyway. We started late, didn't we?
Yeah.
I like to do at least an hour. So everyone's looks like they're going.
Yeah.
I'll catch you later, mate.
Yeah, Kev, spot on, and yeah, cheers everyone. And don't forget to check out my channel, please, Red Owl Bushcraft. And yeah, Kevin, I'll see you on the next one, buddy. And yeah, spot on night, guys.
All right, that mate.
Right, bye.
So yeah, still got a couple of viewers. If anyone wants to jump on, if you want the link and jump on, jump on. Otherwise, we'll call it a night. If all the viewers decide to just leave suddenly, I know no one wants to come on. Don't pull jump at once. Down to 9 viewers. Oh, Craig, let's get Craig on. I was going to send you the link via Facebook, via Facebook, Craig. Here we go. Let's get Craig on.
Hello, mate.
Craig.
How you doing? You all right?
Good, thanks. A bit disappointed with this YouTube and Google thing. I don't know what's going on there, but it seems to be a hell of a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Sam was a bit funny tonight on that one, wasn't it? Bless him. There was a lot of it's the same noise that you get when if your mobile's nearby searching for a signal, it goes da 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 da. There was a lot of that coming through.
All right. Yeah, David Kiv said that. So I don't know if you noticed. I lobbed my phone in the living room. I chucked it.
Yeah, I don't know. It might have been Simon's phone or something. That was coming through. I don't know, but that was a good chat. Simon's a top bloke. I've worked with him a few times. We did a summer together, teaching at Bedgebury in Kent a couple of years ago, and yeah, we had a right giggle. We had 2 big parachutes on the go, and he sort of had a group of kids down at one, and I had a group up in the other, and yeah, we did it for about 7 or 8 weeks in the summer, and it was a good giggle. He's really good guy. I'm very knowledgeable. I've learned a lot of leather stuff off him, little tips and tricks. I just do it as a hobby to something, so I don't go mad sat at home all day if I haven't got any work on. But it's a very addictive hobby, as I'm sure you're starting to find out for yourself. But it's can get an expensive hobby.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've got a bit frustrated because I haven't got the materials here that I want. And it's like, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I started making a couple of fleece smocks for me and Lily.
Yeah,
big hooded ones with big pockets on the front. But then I was having to go at stitching them, just hand stitching. So now I can't. Now I've got to wait for a sewing machine to come.
Yeah, I bought for some of the simple stuff. I went and bought I got like a reconditioned sewing machine from there's actually a sewing machine shop in town, would you believe? And I got this reconditioned Toyota one with like a year's guarantee on it for like 40 quid, and it works a treat for the stuff I use it for. Yeah. Great fun. So no, it's quite funny because while I was sitting there listening to Simon, I've been playing with some of my blades myself, and it's always very interesting hearing the discussion about different types of grind. Because the general consensus is that the Scandi grind is the most universal. It's the best. It's the and it's the easiest to maintain. But as you found yourself, the downside with the Scandi grind is that as you're learning to sharpen, sharpening is a bit of an art form, as anyone will tell you. You do tend, and I think you said this yourself, you roll slightly. So you actually end up kind of like re-rolling the edge or creating like a secondary bevel. And even though we all use Scandi grinds, we all, all of us who teach use Morers. I've literally just sharpened my box of Morers today. It's I put a post up in one of the groups earlier because I've sat there and like there's about 30 Morers in there. And I've cleaned and sharpened. There was one or two that still had bits of rabbit and deer on it from courses earlier. But I actually think that a flat grind, if you like, or the sabre, as Simon was saying, like with a full niven, I think these are actually easier. I was absolutely anti the full niven F1 for years. I didn't like the look of it. I hated the handle on it. And I hated it on principle because one of the companies who I used to work for, which shall remain nameless, the chief instructor had one of these and swore by it. And as far as he was concerned, every other knife on the planet was crap. So I avoided it on sheer principle until I was planning to go to Sweden last year. And the thing is if you compare it to like a Woodlaw type knife, I wanted a knife that was stainless steel rather than carbon steel because I was in a wet environment. I wanted something that was very, very easy to sharpen and look after. I wanted something I could batter the crap out of. So after a bit of research, I bought one of these, the F1. I think that they're about 100 quid, give or take.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll get a better knife for 100 quid.
No.
Anybody who came to me sort of said, I've got a budget of 100 quid to buy a knife, I'd have to push them towards one of these. They are brilliant. I have battered the living whatnots out of this in Norway and in Sweden, and obviously, day-to-day teaching. The black paint came off it in about, 3 days, which silly idea getting the black one in the first place. And I actually think if you're struggling, I actually find this easier to sharpen. Until you've kind of learnt the art of getting that bevel just right on a Scandi, I think these are easier. Because even if you do slightly roll it, you end up with a tip that's sort of, let me do a couple of little diagrams. So in an ideal world, you're after sort of something a little bit like, where's my camera? Up like that.
Yeah.
But even if you end up with something, even if you roll it, you end up with something like that, which is still sharp. You can worry about getting it back to its perfect shape when you get back home. Because it's what Simon said is true. If you're processing, if you're carving wood, then a Scandi grind slides through the wood a lot easier. But if you're also out and about, like for example, when we come to Sweden, we're going to be splitting, we're going to be hacking, you're going to be chopping things away. You want something you can abuse. And the Scandis are great when you're sat there by the fire and you want to whittle your spoon. But if you're building a shelter, processing wood down, making kindling and so forth, then you want something that where the edge isn't quite as fragile. So whittling, carving, that kind of stuff. I've got my Scandis. I love them. As you may have seen, I managed to. I've inherited a Ray Mears knife recently, so I've got that as well as my, two of the most sought after knives in the country: the Woodlaw knife and the Woodlander from Ben Orford, and I've got both. But if you want an all-purpose knife you can use and abuse, and it's still hair-poppingly sharp, then got to go one of these.
Yeah. And
it's sorry, go on.
What would you sharpen it on then? Would you sharpen that on? So see, what's the Lanskis? Is it some of the Lansky were supposed to hold it in place, or? Yeah,
I've actually got one of the Lansky systems, and I get asked about them quite a lot. I was struggling with my sharpening at first. I was like everyone else, I was rolling the edges, and I couldn't get it shavingly sharp. So I'll buy one of these Lanskys. It's idiot proof. I haven't used it in about a year and a half. Generally, what I use with this one, and like my little pocket knives, because I've also, as you know, I the SC that I got stolen, I did get replaced. My other half bought me one, so this often sits around my neck. This little SC knife, and I tend to use. I've got one of these. It's a similar to a DC4 from Thornhaven. Yeah. This is a little 2-grade flat stone. It's diamond ceramic. Get these from Beaver Bushcraft.
Yeah,
and
so
Mark and Helen, lovely people. And this is a 400 and 600. So and like Simon said earlier, a lot of people buy these 1,000, 6,000 whetstones, and if your knife's blunt, you're going to be there for a month trying to sharpen it. 6,000 is just not going to take the metal away. And literally all I take with me, like when I go to Sweden, Norway, anything like that, is I take this knife, I take this stone, and I take this little strop block here.
Yeah.
And that's it. And this is the only thing I've ever sharpened with this. And look, have a look for yourself. It's hair-poppingly. Ooh, catch the bit with the glue on it. It's as sharp as you need it to be. I'm literally, you can sit there and just peel. Don't know whether you can see that, but that is, yeah, that's pulling hair off. So that's with that. It's a quick and easy maintenance because all I do is just hold the stone flat and just do this sort of thing, and it works a treat. And then give it a good stropping. With the fancier knives, because I've got a nice collection of, say, these Scandi grinds from Ben Orford and Ray Mears and people like that. I do use the whetstone, so I've got one of these. Oh, I've just been playing with it tonight. I've got one of these 1,000, 6,000 bare whetstones, which I keep in a plastic tub full of water, so it's constantly wet.
Mm-hmm.
I just change the water every so often because otherwise it goes a bit green. I've got one of these clamps that will hold it onto a desktop. It's sliding around, and I use that. And that just it works for me. I like keeping my stuff really, really, really sharp. I find it easier to use and I find it safer. It's just nice and simple. I'm not a big fan of those Thornhaven DC3, DC4 stones. They are quite cheap. I think I've got one up here. There we go. These little things that everyone buys. They'll do the job, but I think the DC4 is about 15 quid, something like that.
Something like that on Amazon, yeah. 15
quid. I think these ones, from Beaver Bushcraft or Shark Tinderbox, these are about 20. So much better. Really.
How much is the package then? Because they're doing a little set, aren't they? A little pouch.
They do, yeah. They do a little field kit. My friend Steve bought one and he took it with him. Yeah, because you get the stone, the little strop block. I think you get a little pot of this stuff, wherever it is. You get a little bit of that, which is Tormek, which is the honing paste, and a little bottle of this stuff, which is lapping fluid. And lapping fluid you put onto your stone. It just lifts all the dirt out. And I think I think it's 50 quid in a pouch, but it's a great little field set. But to be honest, I don't take the paste and the lapping fluid with me because even if I'm away for a week, this is enough to keep it, So I literally just take. I've got little silly leather pouches that I made myself for it. So the strop block goes in there. The little stone goes in that little sleeve, and that's it. And I preload. I give it a clean with an eraser first to get all the bits of metal out of it, and I put some lapping fluid on it so it's clean to go. I scrape all the excess rubbish off that and then put a fresh coat of honing paste on it. That's more than enough for a week, easily. And if you've seen the photos and stuff from things like Norway and some, we were using the knife a lot. We're having to, we got through a pallet's worth of wood in 5 days, so it was getting heavily used. And I still think these for the axes are very good. These pucks that you can get, they're about 15, 20 quid as well. They're really, really good for the axes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go to Beaver and get one of them. I didn't really want to spend 50 quid on a sharpening kit for the simple reason my knife don't even cost 50 quid.
yeah, no, I mean, don't
it's 40 quid, but
yeah. Don't get me wrong. You can, you can build it up gradually. And you know, if you're using a £15, you know, £20 more or something like that, we all love them Auras. They're absolutely great. One of these, the little DC3, DC4s, will work. I think, yeah. I mean, I'm sort of talking about using the top end knives. I mean, this is my Ray Mears one. You know, these retail at like what, 400 quid. As do that one. That's the Ben Orford. These are the best part of 400 quid. Now with these, you know, if you are in a position where you are spending £300 or £400 on a knife, then theoretically you're not going to be too worried about spending 50 quid on sharpening kit. But with Moras and stuff, which are day-to-day fantastic knives, love them, then yeah, you know, your £15 DC3, DC4 is going to put a good edge on them.
Yeah. Well, I'm not so fussed now, because I know that if I buy it once, if I buy it expensive, I'm going to buy it once, you know.
Yeah, there is that. Was it buy thing? Yeah, and there is definitely something to be said for that. And I mean, with the good knives, I mean, the trick is stropping. I mean, when I'm home, I use one of these bigger strop blocks like this. I think Simon actually makes these, doesn't he?
I'm not sure. I've made my own up to now.
Yeah, they're quite. I mean, I bought this one again from the guys at Shark. They did me a good deal, bless them. I get friends and family rate when I see them. But yeah, it's, unless you actually chip or damage one of these, a good, as you found yourself, mate, a good strop will just keep them polished up. So that's what I've been doing with these ones tonight. These are sorry,
has Mark been all right? Did he go in hospital?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. I heard he went into hospital, and I was like, oh, is he right? And then I saw things saying he's okay and he sends everyone his loves. I don't know actually what happened. All I know is that he sends love to everybody and he's doing okay, and that's it. And I thought, it's not really, you know, I'm either not going to pry because it's none of my business, or, you know, if I missed the actual comment about what happened, then, you know, that was more fault me for missing the comment. But he's a lovely guy and he's on the mend, so hopefully all will be well.
Yeah. I just had visions of him going through his archery in his leg or something, because he does know how to sharpen a knife.
He does, yeah. I mean, I was skeptical, because I've always been, you know, I've seen all these things saying, whetstones. And then I went and saw Mark. There was a little show at Kent. I went along and saw him, and he was using one of these, which is like, it's like an industrial sized DC stone, and it weighs a ton. This thing is really, really heavy. And I was skeptical, and then he literally took a knife, deliberately blunted it by kind of running its flat edge across a stone, so it was, you know, you could grab it and pull it through your hand, and then 2 minutes on one of these and a quick strop, and it was back to hair popping. So I thought, fair enough, you know, you've proved your point. There's me money. You know, I think we've all been guilty of buying things on reputation, and I know I have, without checking things. I know that, you know, and I'm sure we could do a whole discussion on this one night with the group. I'm sure everybody could talk about pieces of kit that they bought on reputation and then went, actually, it's a bit crap, or it doesn't suit me. There's a whole topic there. But so it was really, really good to actually kind of not see it work so well, so effectively. So yeah, if my knives are blunt, I use that at home with that sort of clamp, because that's 400 and 1,000. Get it nice and sharp, and then if it's one of my really, really nice knives, then I use the whetstone, because that almost kind of polishes away any little scratches, so you get that really nice, that really kind of nice shiny mirror that you get. I'm in a fortunate, lucky position where I've been able to sort of build up a bit of a collection of kit and got some really nice gear, so I can put certain tools away for certain things. Like these ones are a twin set that was made for me by a guy called Paul Fennick, who's known as Frenchy. He's kind of retired now, doesn't really make many knives anymore, which is a shame, because he's a beautiful knife maker and his leatherwork is stunning. But I keep these for game processing, even though they're Scandies. I keep them really, 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 really razor sharp, and I do a lot of things like salmon panassing when I'm working in demos, and if you've ever cut up a salmon, it blunts a knife in no time. And this thing just hot knife through butter. It's wonderful.
I forgot to mention Simon with his knives. Really, wanted him to show one. I've handled a couple of his knives.
They're beautifully made. Yeah, the blades are made by a guy at the moment. I think Simon's going to have a go at making his own blades eventually. It's a process he's looking at. Yeah. At the moment, he gets them in from a guy called Mark Hill, who you'll see crop up on Facebook quite a lot. Mark is a very, very good knife maker in his own right. But he makes very, very good quality blades, and Simon buys the blades from Mark, and then he goes to town on the handles and the leather, which is obviously his speciality. And I mean, the work you've seen them for yourself. The workmanship that goes into Simon's handles and things is truly stunning, and his leather work is spot on. So they're if anyone's looking for a custom knife, definitely. I'm kind of surprised that I haven't actually got a Simon Hardie knife in my collection. It's considering we've met and spoken so many times. It's just every time I'm in a position to buy one, he's busy. But I'm probably going to get one of the things that he makes that I really love. Have you seen his Pukos, his traditional Swedish knives that he makes with the stacked handles? It's a very, very kind of simple Scandinavian blade. And the handle is stacked. It's a stick tang, and it's like layers. You've got bits of bone, bits of antler, bits of wood, all layered together, and then he polishes and glues them all together, and they look fantastic. And I'm 99% sure that I'm going to add one of those to my collection at some stage, because they're beautifully made. It's a real craftsman.
Well, I handled Dave McRae's at Christmas, and that was lovely weighted. It didn't feel like there was anything in your hand. It was really nice.
Yeah, I've been playing with that Woodland knife a bit today, and I wanted to hate it because it's a Ray Mears knife. I mean, I only got it because the circumstance of how I came across it. Basically, somebody swapped a £400 brand new unused Woodlaw knife for a £150 SE survival knife. It was too good an offer for me to refuse. Yeah. And I sort of thought, I'll get it and I'll flog it because I'll make a huge profit. And I wanted to hate it, and I don't. It's really annoying. It's stunning. It really, really is a beautifully made piece of kit. And yes, it's probably vastly overpriced because Ray's put his name on it. And I probably would never go and spend £400 on one of these. I certainly wouldn't spend the £800 or so that the original Alan Wood ones are trading places for. But credit where it's due, it is a design that Ray worked on, and it does. I've done a few bow drills and hand drills and stuff today, and a little bit of carving, and yeah, I hate to admit it, it's rather nice. I might have to keep it. Just maybe grind off the Ray bit. And annoyingly, I don't know if you've seen recently, there's another new knife coming out that Ray's worked on. It's a folding knife, and it's actually made by Spyderco. Yeah. It's a Spyderco knife, but it's a Ray Mears design, and there was a discussion about it on the other day. If you actually go to if you just Google Ray Mears Spyderco knife, you'll find it, because it's going to be sold through Woodlaw. I think they're going to be about 200 quid, which is a lot of money for a folding knife. But again, it's kind of like it looks really nice. It's a really nice blade. It's a Scandi grind on a locking folder, which again Simon will tell you is fairly rare. So that might have to go on the Christmas list or something.
Karen's asking, have you got any advice how you would sharpen a fro?
A fro, yeah. I've actually got a fro. I grab it, but it's in the garage. I was using it today. Now, of course, traditionally, a fro is a green woodworking tool. It's for anyone who doesn't know, it's a splitting tool.
Is it like an adze?
Is it what? Sorry.
Oh, I can't remember the name of the word. Is it an adze or
an adze? In a similar sort of vein, basically, it's like a chisel blade. My one, probably the blade is about that long, length the whole knife, and a wooden handle, and it's sort of like an L shape.
Yeah.
And obviously the blade edge points downwards, and the idea is you can rest it on top of a piece of wood, smack it with a mallet or a hammer, and then you can lever the handle backwards and forwards to split the wood. If you looked at my business page or anything, I made some ash mallets today, and I used for that. Now, the fro doesn't have a particularly sharp blade because it's a splitting tool. So it doesn't have to be, you know, hair popping and slice bits of paper like a knife does. So on that basis, I would, you know, an oil stone would be very good, which you can pick up very cheap from a DIY store. You can go to B&Q and pick one up for about £5 because it doesn't really matter too much. You know, you don't have to get that mirror finish on it. If you've put any dings or dents in it at all, if you've damaged it by hitting a nail, then I would recommend actually filing that off with a metal file, and then just using a simple oil stone for a £5 just to sort of get a bit of an edge on it, because say it doesn't have to be razor sharp, it just needs like an edge like that, just so it wedges through the wood.
Yeah, so that happens. I've got one, and obviously that was one of the first things I brought because it was cheap. It was an oil stone, and I ran my knife across it, and God, did it scratch it!
Yes, it's a little bit heartbreaking. It's that moment. It's a bit like this new one. I mean, it literally was spotless, and it's got its first mark on it. And I'm like, oh well, I've got to keep it now. It's marked.
Well, that was it. I'd seen Ray Mears use the oil, the whetstones with that knife.
Yeah.
And it was polished. And then I looked at my knife and I thought, I don't look right. Looks like mine's been chewed by some animals. I was like, I don't look the same.
In fairness, it depends which episode you watch. If you watch, Ray gets a few of them, obviously, you know, being Ray, he's got more than one. He's still got one of the original prototypes, which Alan Wood made for him. That's his favourite. And if you see him use it on TV occasionally, and that really has had years of abuse. It's worn down, lots of scratches, but there are many TV appearances where he's got a brand new one to play with, and these new ones, which are made by a guy called Stephen May Cox, I'm sure he's actually got quite a few of those, and they've probably got them in the office. He just grabs one on the way out. But yeah, it's one of those. Oh, I've scratched my knife. What do I do? But yeah, they are nice to look at, but they are tools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had some looks of horror of people who've seen me, you know, battening around and smacking around my Ben Orford or things like that. And I think the classic one was last year's Bushcraft show. We were talking earlier about the kit that people had with them and some of the people that went. And I saw a guy with a Ben Orford knife on his belt, and it was pristine. And then he picked up a piece of wood and then reached around his back, pulled out his Mora to cut it. It really was. So, you know, if you want to collect the knives and you want to keep them as pretty ornament pieces, Simon mentioned earlier about people with folding knives and cabinets, that's absolutely fine. You know, I did spend a lot of money on my knives, but I did it on the basis that they would be good, reliable tools, and I am going to use and abuse them.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same. Like I say, I've not really gone out and brought a custom knife or anything like that yet. Just till I know that, you know, that I'm looking after them right and I can get them back to a nice standard if need be.
Yeah, you know, they're an investment. I mean, I don't actually, you know, I was joking about it the other day, thinking, cool, bloody hell, if I pop me clogs tomorrow, I've got a hell of a collection of kit. What would I do with it? And I don't have kids or anything personally. I've seen people say, oh, I bought a £400 knife and I'll look after it and I'll pass it on to my son. I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know, I might have to start a bid thing on Facebook or something like that. You know, put a bid into charity to take Craig's kit if he cops it.
Mate, if you die, we're splitting it between us, look.
Well, that's the old joke, isn't it? It's the old T-shirt, isn't it, with the military thing and stuff. It's yeah. If you die, we're splitting your kit. Yeah. So if I drown in Sweden, you're going to kind of nick. I'll only take a cheap knife with me. If
you drown in Sweden, you have to take my foot off your head to take that to get that Ray Mears knife.
How do you stop Craig from drowning? Take your foot off his head. Yeah, absolutely. So this one's had a bit of a work on the whetstone and a quick strop. So let's grab a little bit of Post-it and see how we're doing with this one. Oh, that's nice. Just that satisfying noise, isn't it? Let's have another go. Yeah, there we go. So that's all I'll do with that now is I'll give it a wipe with this oilcloth. It's got like various kind of like 3-in-1 oil and stuff impregnated on it. So I'll give it a wipe with that. Leaves a little coat on it. And that goes back in the sheath for when it's next used. I said how good this guy's leatherwork is. I don't know how well you can see that. This is a a piggyback double sheath, and it is just see all the artwork on it, beautifully made. So that holds those two knives together. So yeah, very, very talented man. Don't you hate people that are that naturally gifted? Some of us have to work hard at it.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Some of us have to work that hard.
Yeah. Did you see my little thing today? I've had the day off today and I was bored. I had the woods knocking around in my garage, but I fashioned, split, and made a bow drill set from scratch using just a piece of flint.
Yeah, I think I've just seen something come on.
Yeah, that was good fun. When you cut your notch out of your baseboard for your dust and your ember to sort of fall into, usually that's like a 1 minute, 2 minute job with a knife. A piece of flint took me about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's amazing what you take for granted. I mean, I had a stick about that long, but there was a straight section. That's what I was using for my drill. Of course, usually I'll just get my Laplander out and just cut it to the right shape and then trim it with a knife. It's 2 or 3 minutes. Whereas with the flint, I had to sit there and work little nicks in it all the way around and trying to create like a little dent in it and then snap it off at the right length. And then I had to sit there and just shave little bits of wood off. So yeah, it's amazing how much we take proper tools for granted when all you've got is a bit of rock.
Didn't you see? Did you ever see that Ed Stafford, that maroon with Ed Stafford, where he went on that tropical island by himself for a month? Yeah,
the 60-day one. Yes, the book is much better. If people liked that, I think the Public Works are doing a deal on it.
You just reminded me because he tried to chop that tree down. It must have been about 7 inch in diameter, and it took him a week with a shell.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing what you take for granted. I've done little bits of work. I mean, I did a bit of animal butchery with a flint knife that I bought off Will Lord, and it razor sharp, but it was still hard work. So, and I've done little bits with a bit of flint, but I thought, no, I've got time on my hands today, so I got it to work, and I got my ember and I got my fire. But yeah, it reminded me that how nice it is to have a proper cutting tool with you if you're going to do that.
You inspired. I don't think you were part of the MTFU Facebook group, are you?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Well, the last time you was on, inspired. We've got the WhatsApp side chat thing where we'll chat on there and have banter and that. But you inspired that many people to go out and mess around with Fiction Fire after the last time you was on.
Oh, wonderful! I'm glad to hear it.
Cattails and all sorts.
Oh, wonderful, brilliant. Well, maybe I'd love to hear. Next time I'm on, be lovely to hear some people's stories, but because one of the things we get quite a lot of when we teach is like a problem solving for Friction Fire. I get a lot of people initially asking, what are the best words, blah 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 blah, but then a lot of people come back, and then sort of say, right, well, I've done this and I've done that, and this is happening and that's happening. So, obviously, I'm hoping all these people have had awesome success, but it'd be lovely to hear their stories to see if we can make their lives a bit easier, do a bit of fine tuning for them, if you like.
Yeah. Well, Matt from LG4 Outdoors, he's got some lime now, but I think it's just seasoning that. He's just letting that dry out. I think he went out and did some cattails, but I'm not sure if it was the cattails that I had before that it was only getting the brown dust, and now it's gone on to black dust, but they keep snapping.
This was hand drill, wasn't it, for the cattail?
So
yeah, it's a funny one, cattail. It's a bit like elder. It kind of goes from green to dead, and you're trying to obviously catch it at that stage in between, and the window is tiny. So the trick with things like teasel, cattail, and a lot of those ones in buddleia and burdock is to actually cut it green. And then keep an eye on it and let it kind of season in front of you and check it almost every day. And when it's just right, get in there and get it working. It means, finding a set live, if you like. So if you were to go out and say, right, I'm going to find a drill on the spot and get it to work with hand drill is inordinately hard in this country. It can be done. But most people who do hand drill in this country have got sets where even the baseboards, things like clematis, which is probably the easiest baseboard to use, is still something where you've probably cut it split it, and then let it dry out at home. So it's not really cheating, because you're still got the art of it, but trying to get something on the spot that'll work is taking hand drill to another level.
Well, I think I've got you scheduled in for about a fortnight today, if you're not busy.
No, Thursday evenings I'm usually in. I mean, unless I'm working away, and obviously I'm going to be doing less of that this year because we've got the Woodland in Kent now that we're running courses from, and that sort of opens end of March. So last year I was doing a lot more freelance work for other companies and behind the scenes TV production work and things for the MOD and stuff like that. So I was traveling around a lot more. So on the plus side, it means I'm going to be home a lot more. So, and Thursday evenings I'm usually here because my beloved has one of her friends come over on a Thursday. So they sit downstairs and slag men off and watch Grey's Anatomy or whatever, and I sit up here in the office and get on with something. So Thursday evening's usually good.
Yeah, and like I say, anytime like tonight, if you just want to pop on, even though you're not the designated panel member, shall we say, for that week, if any time you want to pop on, you're more than welcome just to pop on.
That's great. I was really enjoying listening to Simon. He's an entertaining guy, and really knows his stuff. Very passionate about what he does, as you've probably noticed. His perfection level is very high. If it's not right, it doesn't go out.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even sell the stuff because he doesn't want people paying money for something with his name on it that could come back and bite him in the bum.
Of course,
So yeah, great thing. And I was enjoying Di's chat last week. So I'm a regular lurker and listener, regardless, and certainly not going to intervene in anyone else's chat. I'm like the rest of you. I enjoy sitting there listening to them, but if I'm around and can ever be of help and service, then I'm always happy to.
Yeah. Well, it was hard for me to keep the chat going last week because I was so out of my depth. It was just something that I didn't really have much of a clue about. But I know it's something that a lot of people are interested in, like the foraging and the self-reliance. But it was hard for me.
Yeah, it's such a big thing now, and of course, and as a result, it's kind of blown up, quite badly in places. You've got like the New Forest saying no foraging at all now. And you've got councils talking about putting in restrictions on blackberry picking, and God knows how they're going to monitor that. But it's got so popular. You don't need to be a bushcrafter as such. You don't need to sleep in a hammock and go in the woods to enjoy wild food and foraging. So a lot of your Guardian reader Sunday afternoon types have gone and bought their nice little wicker baskets and have gone out. But it's that old, take only what you need. And I think this is the problem. You've got people doing it commercially and selling it. You've got people who are going out into private woodlands without permission, taking stuff and selling it to restaurants. And yeah, it just needs to be controlled a little bit better, so that everyone can enjoy it.
I'm not involved with the conspiracy theories, but it's something that I keep an eye on, shall we say.
Yeah.
In the same way that you or a bushcrafter will keep an eye on the preppers or Elements Cross.
Bless them. Yes, I get a lot of communications from preppers.
Do you know what I mean? But that's the way I am with the conspiracy theories, and they are blowing up about something. Like I posted something the other day about people adverts on the telly taking the mick out of that wood carver, that spoon maker.
Is it
the other one with Sainsbury's where she's going into the woods with the sausages and there's loads of squirrels going to attack her. And now there's films coming out called The Forest where it's saying don't go off the track, and if you go off the track you're getting killed by stuff. And it's just like all the conspiracy theories at the minute, they're like, what, you're not allowed to go and pick wood up, you're not allowed to, why are they trying to keep us away from the woods? And it's been a bit of an interesting, like I say, I'm not in the circles, but I just keep an eye on it.
It's a touchy subject for me because my stepfather is a full-on conspiracy theorist who's actually written books on how the power elite and the Illuminati control governments and finances throughout the world. So unfortunately, I've been kind of subjected to this most of my life, but. At the same time, he also kind of believes that that Bruce Lee was killed by a secret clan of ninjas for revealing secrets in his movies, and with one of these magic punches. And so the problem is with the conspiracy things is they can take a little bit of truth and a little bit of sense, and then they mix it with a large element of madness. And it's like, what was it they say that the best lies are 75% truth or something, don't they? Mm-hmm. And I think you get those sort of elements mixed together, and there's certain things that we don't know, and there are covers up and hush hush and a bit of this, and then so there's that, but then they kind of start throwing a little bit of fantasy into it as well, and when it all comes together, you do get some rather interesting topics of conversation. I don't think anyone's trying to deliberately keep us out of the woods. It is an inherent problem. I mean, the woodland that we're operating from, Badgell's Wood, I mean, I'm up there Saturday and then working there next week, getting ready. And one of the things that we've got to do is, even though it's privately owned land, he still has to have planning permission to operate it as a campsite. Now, that involves obviously speaking to, as with any planning permission, it involves speaking to the neighbours and people around. But you've also got to get a lot of permission from Natural England and Kent, and in our case, Kent Wildlife. Because Kent Wildlife can turn around and say, well, it's an area of, specific scientific interests. There's bugs and grubs, butterflies and birds and all this kind of stuff. And even though he owns his land, they can say, yeah, you own it, can't walk on it. Mm-hmm. So in order to operate it as a campsite, we do have to have quite strict rules. And this is things that people complain about. People sort of say, oh, they're trying to rip us off. They're saying, you can have a fire, but you can't bring your own wood. You can't burn any of the deadfall. You can only burn the wood that they sell you. So it's just them making money. And the fact is, it's not. We make no money on the wood whatsoever. It costs more. We sell like a huge kind of big carry bag type thing, one of them big cargo ones, for like a tenner. It's 3 times the size of the bags that you get from the petrol station for a tenner. And that wood has to be cut, seasoned and chopped. We make no money on that whatsoever. We sell that because it has to come from a sustainable source, because if we allow people to pick up the deadfall and burn it, Kent Wildlife and Natural England will come in and shut the place down. Mm-hmm. And same origin. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I said the same thing when people started saying, is Woodland Camping-Craft going to have a meet? And I said exactly the same thing. I said, if it does, it will not be like you go into the woods for the weekend and just burning a bit of deadfall. It will be sustainable. The firewood you will have to pay for, and it has to be sustainable, like you said.
And we've got to go in, and I've got to make some, like where my teaching area is and where the pitches are. We're going to go and build a load of dead hedges and mark some boundaries and so forth. Because if people go off and just wander, even just treading down brambles and pathways is enough for for Kent Wildlife and Natural England to say you're causing too much of a human footprint on it, and they'll shut us down. Mm-hmm. Which is a real shame, but unfortunately that's what it is. And if we say to people, yeah, you can go off and foraging and pick, and that will have the same problem. So there is a certain element of, we have to sort of control it so that we can still use anything. And it does seem like a bit of a shame, but I hope that people who come to the, not just obviously Badgell's, but all these campsites do appreciate that, running a woodland campsite, there's a lot more to it than just kind of saying, well, this is my wood, go and knock yourself out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We hope.
I'm hoping to get to the stage where I can get a few group meets, but I'm hoping everyone understands that it's not going to be like a sneaky camp that they'll have. There'll have to be a few rules. There'll have to be a few safety rules. And I mean, David does it. David does a good job, and like some of the rules he has, like if the alcohol comes out, the knives go away. It's simple.
Yeah. Same with us on many courses. Yeah, we're a big fan of the sharp, shiny things, as you know, and I'm not adverse to a beer or two, but yeah, very much. When the sun goes down and the beers come out, the knives and axes and the saws go away. Yeah, and that's another thing as well.
All that sort of thing. It should be standard to most of us anyway, but
Well, yeah, and of course the other problem with foraging is, we live in this kind of sue culture. Every other advert on TV is, have you been hurt, injured, in this, that, and the other, and we claim for this. And there is a worry with landowners and people who own campsites and especially woodland campsites and so forth, that if you sort of say yes, it's fine to go foraging, and then somebody goes off, picks up a mushroom and eats it, and it's a poisonous one, and something really bad happens to them, we don't want that on the conscience. Of course, you don't want anybody getting hurt or getting ill. But secondly, we now live in a culture where we're also worried that somebody's going to sort of say, well, I got stomach cramps after eating a mushroom and you said foraging was okay, but you didn't warn us that there were poisonous bits, and I'm going to sue you for £1 million. And some, ambulance chasing lawyer would probably take it on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an unfortunate times that we live in for that side of things, but it's the way it is.
Yeah, well, this was the thing with dye as well. This was another with a level of expertise in foraging and that. And I know people will have questions, but at the same time, I don't want anyone to go away from my chat and try something and get ill.
Oh God, yeah, and I mean, I get asked about mushrooms a lot, and it's such a big popular thing. And my rule has always been, unless you are 110% sure, just don't risk it. It's better than it was. I'm probably up to about a dozen, maybe 15 mushrooms where I'm, completely confident now. If I see one, I can look at it, identify it, and say, yeah, that's fine. I know what that is, and that's safe. But out of those 15 mushrooms, there's probably 5 of them that I can identify that I know are absolutely poisonous. And when you consider how many varieties that there are, being able to identify 10, 15 is very, very, very small. So
I'm in my 2s and 3s, honestly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a little bit easier with plants, and it's a little bit easier with fruits and berries. But mushrooms is an absolute minefield. And there are many, many tales of experts who've got it wrong.
I said last week in the chat, there's more dead mushroom experts than there are alive mushroom experts. Yeah,
absolutely, and that's the thing. It's you get a lot of, you see it yourself. People sort of put, they've grabbed something, they've picked it, they've taken it home, and they've taken a photograph on their phone, and then they put it on Facebook saying, "Can I eat this?" I'm like, well, you've already picked it up and handled it, which is not a good idea. Yeah.
Eat a bag of crisps from the petrol station on the way home, and you've already put it in your system.
Exactly. That and it is a real, genuine concern. It's and I always joke. People sort of say to me, "Can I eat this?" I'm like, well, you can eat any mushroom once.
Yeah.
You might not get a second chance. So it's a fascinating world. It's certainly not my strongest area. And wild food is something I'm continuing to work on as a student with my mentors. But it's a fascinating world, and it's one I'm really, really enjoying studying.
When we was on the Woodland Ways course, there was going on about hogweed. There was hogweed all around the woods.
Oh, right. Okay. And everyone being paranoid about the John hogweed thing.
Yeah. Well, no, it was only normal hogweed. It wasn't the poisonous stuff. But he in there and said, "Right, stop that. What are you doing now?" And Lily was like stood in the tracks because Lily was on the course. And, "Do not go around touching." And I was like, I didn't know how I felt about it, because in one instance, yeah, if that would have been the giant stuff, she could have been in trouble. But two, you don't want to put fear into kids. We all went around grabbing sticks and flowers and stuff when we were kids. I mean, there's a fine balance of, don't want them to get hurt, but you still want them to be able to go out and enjoy the woods. It's a balance.
And I mean, I think the thing is, as well, the media were very, very quick to put up pictures of people with these horrendous kind of burns and blisters from touching giant hogweed. But you got to remember, how much of the country is covered in woodland, how many people are out there, how many people actually got really bad burns from giant hogweed? A few. So the chances are very, 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 very small. And it's whilst you need to make people aware, you can go overboard and panic people, which is equally as wrong. And the annoying thing with hogweed is at the right time of year, standard hogweed tastes fantastic. I love it. It's one of my favorites. It's sort of, you can kind of break the stem off and peel it down a little bit, take the hair bits off it, and it tastes a bit like it's like a cross between like celery and cucumber, as like a salad food. It's amazing. One of my favorites. So it's very, very unfortunate that everyone's going, "Oh my God, hogweed," and getting into a panic now, because you've only got to look at some pictures. Google hogweed, Google giant hogweed. They are very, very, very noticeably different.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, like you say, how many people got hurt? Every single thing I clicked on about it, because I was worried, obviously, taking Lily out as often as I do. None of them was from this year. In fact, none of them was even in the two, you know, there was all like 0,000s, like 06, 07s, 08. There was nothing from, I couldn't even see anything like in double digits, like 2011, 2015, or I couldn't, it was all like, I couldn't find a single post that was from that year.
Yeah, it was the media's latest panic thing, wasn't it? Bless them. It's you know, it just be aware. I mean, if you ever come across it, you will not confuse it. You know, it looks like triffids. It's huge stuff. You know, they grow so quickly. They stand sort of 10, 12, 15 foot tall. So
yeah.
You know, it's if you've seen a picture of it once, you won't forget it if you ever see it again, because you'll think, bloody hell, what's that huge plant that looks like something out of Jurassic Park? It's that'll be the one I shouldn't touch.
Yeah. Pat's can you remember Pat Silver from the Bushcraft Show? She comes spend a good few hours with us.
Who, sorry?
Pat Silver.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, she's in the chat tonight. She put her background in botany, and she's still careful with mushrooms. Touching them generally isn't a problem, but she's more wary of the fruit plants. Yeah, so yeah, I'd love to get you on sometime, Pat, if you want to come on.
All knowledge, yeah. Anybody with knowledge like that is fantastic. I see. I mean, apart from obviously Dave, there's a lady who operates in and around the sort of the Kent, Essex sort of area. A lady called Carol Hunt, who does wild edibles courses, and I've been on a few of her courses because they're really, really good value. I mean, she'll do like a day in the woods, wandering around, picking up stuff and putting these fabulous recipes together. It's like 45 quid, which is a bit of a bargain, really. So I've learned quite a lot of her recently, and then, like everybody else, you know, buy a book, take the book with you. Which is another thing where people go on. People sort of they buy a book and they read it at home, then they go out and they think, oh, that looks a little bit like the picture, but have the book with you, put it up next to it. And you know, and I've tried doing a fair bit of that. I think we spoke the other day when Di was on. She was mentioning the Wild Food book by Roger Phillips.
Yeah.
Which is a really, really good one. And I think I commented on in the side chat at the time, because I think recommended retail is about 18 quid, but I think Publishers Works, you can buy it online for about 7 quid. My copy there, and it's a hardback one as well. That one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's a really, really, really good one on Wild Food. There's some good recipes in there, and of course
Is it mainly Britain though, or is it Europe as well? Or
this is predominantly a British book, which is great. Obviously for us. So yeah, this is predominantly a British book. Food for Free is obviously another famous classic one. Even the little Collins Gems books are really good. They do a good one on wild food and mushrooms and things. That's and
the thing is, Food for Free one, like the pictures don't resemble the plants.
yeah, it's Food for Free, especially the little Collins one, is one that you need to take with you, and actually have it as a reference. So if you actually see something, open up the book next to it, and then you've got the picture, but you've also got the description, and the two together is a good guide. I mean, photos are always better than drawings, obviously, for this sort of thing. But yeah, it's still a handy little guide. It's a good one to sort of start with.
Yeah, but like I say,
yeah, Mears has got a good one as well, an old classic. And it's not so much Ray. It's this guy, Gordon Hillman, who has worked with. Sadly, he's got dementia and he can't work anymore, which is a horrible thing, as we know. But his information that's gone into Ray's book on wild food is fantastic. And there was a little one that Sean got me. Where are we? Oh, there we go. I've got such a library up here above me of shelves and books. It's unbelievable. There's like 3 shelves, and most of it's full of either magazines and books. This was a lovely one.
Hedgerow and book.
Yeah, it's a lovely one for the UK, and there's just there's really, really nice recipes in there, but there's really, really good
I think I mentioned that one, didn't you, last week?
Yeah, really, really good drawings.
Yeah.
And stuff in there. It was yeah. Sean got it for me for Christmas. I think he found it in a little bookshop, and it's a lovely little one. So.
I got a nice tree one today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just see if I can see it. Oh, it's by your man, Roger Phillips.
Hey. Clever bloke, obviously.
It was in Sue Ryder for £1.50.
Oh, yeah. They're little gems, aren't they? They're
Like you say, I walked right past it and I glanced at it, but it's actual photographs.
Nice. Really, really, really.
My colourblind, I couldn't refuse that. I had to.
Oh, they. I've said it before and said it again. You know, the charity shops, pound shops, things like that. They're little gems.
It's everything's all actual photographs. So, and I just thought it was like another book. I've got loads. I've got more books on tree ID than any other thing that I have.
Yeah.
So I didn't. I just looked at it and I thought, and then you know, I went back and looked at it and seen it was photographs, and I thought, well, got to have it for £1.50.
You can't go wrong. Yeah. I've got a little book up there. It's a really old book from the 70s called The Technique of Leathercraft, and Sean found it in a pound shop, in a charity shop for like £1, and it's a very, very old book with black and white photographs, but there's still some really useful stuff in there. But yeah, I mean, you do find amazing little things. You know, we've all heard stories about people finding pure wool blankets for £1 and you know, various reference books and things. Yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I can't walk past a charity shop without walking in.
When I first started doing leather,
being brought up in there,
I picked up this large ladies' leather jacket. It was about I was with Mother Half. It was about £3-4, and it was like a size 22 leather jacket. And I cut it open and I cut little sections out of it to sew up as pouches on the sewing machine. So because it was, and I made these little very simple like coin purses. Just a good way of practicing without spending a lot of money.
Mm.
Finding leather sofas and that have been sort of taken to the tip and stuff like that. You just go on with your knife and just cut big squares of like really, really good upholstery leather out.
The thing is, though, there tends to be good timber in them as well.
Yeah, there can be. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to end the chat there because we've just lost the last viewer. It's just me and you.
No,
it's gone down for me.
It's 12:15. My mother half's already come upstairs, so she'll be settling herself down for the night and be sociable. But
good night, everyone. I'll just end it there and then just say goodbye to you after Creek.